What do you know about Star Fox Assault? I know that it sounds sort of vaguely illegal when I say the title out loud. I feel a little bad saying it sometimes, but I also know, or also think, that it informs a lot about Smash Brothers, I think, aesthetically. You know, Smash has this very grand, like, big, triumphant, orchestral feel to it that it's sort of settled into after a couple of games. And Smash in general has this very general art style, but I feel like a big part of that radar chart is the Star Fox idea, because even Star Fox, for a series with such little content, and how small as it is, I think fits perfectly into Smash Brothers. Whereas other series, maybe like Sonic or a Mario, have to sort of, you have to sort of exercise a bit of it or make a rendition of this character that's specific to this medium. Mega Man, I think, looks very specific to Smash Brothers, at least in how he's portrayed there. Or like Link, there are versions of Link there, but each one sort of has a specific identity within the Smash Brothers space that they don't have within their own games. But then Star Fox that's a one-to-one. That's a perfect one-to-one guy, right? So much so that within Smash Brothers itself, there is fresh, like, exclusive content for characters that aren't even in the dang game. Slippy has voice lines in Smash Brothers that are exclusive to Smash Brothers that he doesn't have anywhere else.
A blue planet? It's actually quite breathtaking, isn't it?
Boy, I'll say, look at all that water. That's paradise for guys like you and me, huh? Without a quick dip in the water now and then, we get all dried out.
Listen, I'm no frog. Don't try to stick us in the same group.
But you've got a long, stretchy tongue, just like me, right?
Didn't I just tell you to drop the subject?
And it makes sense for Palutena or maybe Snake to have some lines in his stages, but I think there's straight up like 3 of those stages where they all have things to say to each other, and they're all interacting in ways that I think are accurate to the games, and I think that shows how perfect Star Fox is for this sort of in media res conflict situation where it's, oh no, there's a war, there's a fight, there's a conflict, somebody call Star Fox, And speaking of conflict, Star Fox Assault, that's a big conflict. The setup, I think, is a really cool part about this game that I think stood out to me as someone who's played the other Star Fox games, or at least who's played Star Fox 2 and, any version of the 64/original story. Sometime after Star Fox 64, I'm assuming somewhere from like maybe 5 to 10 years, Star Fox Adventure happens. That's how Crystal's here. In that time, in between Star Fox Adventures and Assault, Oikini, apparently his last name is, and Andrew, the prick from Star Fox 64, Andross's nephew, the dribblings of a previous villain, have come back, and he's going to start a new Lylat War, dude. That's right, guys. The Lylat Wars 2. Good luck branding that one in England, Nintendo. Lylat Wars 2, a game from like Sif. Is that even, if it's still called Lylat Wars? I wonder. Is Star Fox still called Lylat Wars at the detriment of the Mario movie? That'd be interesting. That'd be wild. Oikini, that bastard, that frick, wants to start a whole new Star Fox 64 war, and so you're chasing him down. Star Fox and the crew coming in. We're gonna take down that Oikini once and for all. The last crumbs of Andross' spawn. We're gonna take him out once and for all. End the empire, basically. And it's a grand opening too, right? You have the whole fleet that's coming in. The music is bum-booting. It's great. I like the intro. It feels like it's really familiar, really warm. It feels grand. The ships feel huge, by the way. I don't know what it is. I think like R-Wings are a lot larger in this game than they were in 64 and any other game that I've played from the series, basically. The R-Wings seem massive, and so do the ships, and that kind of skews the scale of everything a little bit. It looks kind of like toy ships at first, until you reach the ground or a more like naturalistic environment. You get a better sense of scale, and the R-Wings are quite big. They're quite tanky, and I think that kind of adds to the grand, maybe movie production feel to the whole thing. R-Wings aren't just these little tiny video game ships. They're these giant mechanical machines, and I really like that about the aesthetic that they present you with right away, right? And you get the big Star Fox ship, you get the R-Wing, you get the whole crew, you get Crystal on the team, post-adventure, and she's a really nice addition. She stands out a lot in terms of like the uniform and the tone, I think, that she brings to things, but I think in general, it's nice to have a new party member of the team, and I appreciate her being there. She even has an interesting take on several different things throughout the game. You chase down Oikini to this, and I'm saying Oikini because that's what they call him, and I think that name is way Zanier. It's way, I got a zest to it that I like. I like it a lot. I like that they introduced first name Andrew, last name Oikini, because they don't want to call that bastard Andros. They're adding further salt to the wound there by not honoring him with a first name. Anyway, you chase this guy down to the planet, you take some shots at him, classic Star Foxisms, and then Oikini is hijacked and utterly destroyed by a brand new force I think they're, what are they? The arachnoids? The arachnids? Tyrannoid? No, hold on, what are they called? Hold on, let me check the name real quick. Aporoids. The aporoids. Yes, they say it so many times, and I forgot it for some reason. But the aporoids, they're these big, sort of bug-like, kind of weirdly textured, sort of inorganic, but secretly like very organic creatures. That's a very different style of visual than you get from other Star Fox games and other Star Fox things in general. They don't have the blocky sort of cardboard box cut out, like cool N64, like an old school Nintendo with some high-res texture feel as everything else has. They have a distinctly Metroid Prime paint on a really Galaga style thing. Like these are very clearly like kind of chibi-ish, cartoonish, like more stylized video game enemies. Their build doesn't make sense, but what they're built out of makes an alarming amount of sense. It's kind of gross and creepy and scaly, and it's weird, and right, and so it takes over Andross's nephew's ship. I think it just straight up just kills him. I think he just dies. We don't see that guy for the rest of the game. And so now a new threat is introduced, the Aporoids. And so now Star Fox has to team up with not just his whole old crew from the previous war, not just the General Pepper and the whole Cornelian Force, but even Starwolf is getting in on this, right? And any stragglers from the previous game, Pigma, just annihilated. Andrew, obviously, annihilated. Just any smatterings of the world of Star Fox is drawn into this vortex of absolute chaos. It's a massive threat, maybe the biggest threat Star Fox has handled. This feels huge, I think. And it does a really cool job of building off of what 64 established in terms of like, this is the scope of the series. You know, a war's a war, right? We had Star Fox's dad in the war, right? And it sets up a really nice, like, okay, war's a normal thing. Star Fox is a mercenary. He does this kind of thing generally. And it gives you like a nice in media res. But like I said, with the Smash Brothers thing, Star Fox is a perfect character to be like, hey guys, action's happening. Let's bring in the Star Fox gang, right? Mario movie. Hey guys, action's happening, and we're in space, you know who to call. And what follows is sort of a really dramatically harrowing story. Star Fox has always been based on the plot, right? It's been a very plot-driven series, and by plot I don't mean story, but I mean more like the points, the dots, the frames and moments of an individual story, basically, right? So Star Fox doesn't have a big story or a narrative or any kind of message to it necessarily, but every level is informed by a plot point. Star Fox, we have to go defend this base. Star Fox, we have to go attack this missile. Star Fox, we have to go chase down this guy through an asteroid field. Star Fox, we have to go defeat this boss. The point is, the series is very much a plot-based thing. Each level is a plot point in a larger story. And that's what makes the branching path so interesting, because each plot point adds to the last one, right? The previous point informs the next one, and the one in front of it informs the next one in front of it until you reach the end and you get whatever ending you get for the games, basically. Assault is one straight line, so no multiple plot points, but they really, really, really add a ton of weight. They really drive that plot home with each plot point in this story, and I think I really like how hard they go off this story. It gets harrowing, it gets dramatic, it gets really stunning, right? Again, not a lot of depth to it, not a lot of I don't know, it doesn't hit super hard. It's not like the most harrowing, dramatic thing in the world, and it can even get undermined a little bit by just how much is going on and how quickly and how often you have to interact with the gameplay side of things. But overall, I think it was a really great impression of Star Fox. I really enjoyed what they had going on here. If I had to sort of summarize my thoughts on Star Fox Zero and my brief sort of digging into the game shortly after playing it for the first time, I think Star Fox Zero is a great, or Star Fox Zero, what the hell? Wait, hold on a minute. Time stop, Rivers. Writes the dust that quickly. If I had to summarize my feelings on Star Fox Assault, I'd say it's a really interesting entry in the concept of handling. I think conventional game logic would have you to believe that a game should control in a way that I think is free and easy for the player, right? When I move the stick left, my character should move left. When I jump, the character should jump. When I punch, the character should punch. I think immediate, understandable, flexible, lenient action, reliable controls, easy access to all the things that the game wants you to do. That kind of thing makes sense for a straightforward game design goal. Sometimes games can get mistaken as being poorly controlling. They handle poorly, right? The turning's not quite what you want it to be. Tank controls, jumping might be a little delayed. It feels kind of stiff, robotic movement. There's not a lot of motion or physics to what's going on here. Things feel light or weightless. I think a lot of games have that kind of feedback to them. And for a lot of them, I think it's fair, but there's a certain portion of games out there, I think specifically early action games, or a lot of arcadey action games in particular, especially around the same era as Star Fox Assault, early 2000s action games, I think. A lot of them get this feedback, and I think some of that is a little bit, not necessarily misguided, but but I like to challenge that a little bit every time I play a game. For example, Gungrave, one of my favorite games of all time. I really love Gungrave. I love what it's going for, but bro has tank controls, all right? You're sliding, you're basically walking it like a molasses. You're not doing a whole lot. And sure, you can run, but like you have to really line yourself up to get the run perfect. You move at a pretty decent pace if you just want to walk forward. But in terms of navigating a room, there's a lot of difficulty to that. And I think a lot of people would interact with that and call the controls stiff or weird or maybe wonky. Same for like one of the more modern Sonic games, the Boost games, your Sonic Unleashes, your Generations, right? I think a lot of those games get called poorly controlling or like weirdly handling, but I think there's a lot to say about how those games restrict you and not so much what you're not allowed to do in those games, because I think a big part of it is the framing. It's the angle, right? It's the what they want you to see and how they want you to interact with the game that I think makes it a really distinct, interesting, and sometimes really nuanced experience. And that's why I like to engage with games like that, and that's why Star Fox Assault, especially compared to Star Fox the original, or Star Fox the Zero, or Star Fox the 64, or Star Fox 2. I played 2. 2 was another one I played. Assault really stood out to me because so much of its identity and so much of its nuance and detail lies within its handling, which I think to a lot of people might come off as like, these are bad controls, these are wonky, this is weird, but I think there's a logic, there's a system that makes sense to me, right? I'm sort of vaguely familiar with game making and game designing, and I know there's a mindset you can get into when you make a game, especially a janky one, that the game itself isn't as bad or isn't as hard as it seems because, you're playing this game yourself, you're doing it over and over and over in every moment, in every instance, in every iteration as you're testing it slowly, and eventually you get to the point where you go, well, this seems solid, this seems fine, right? And that can lead to a game that has problems, but you might be blind to them because you have sort of learned how to play your own game. And so I often have a hard time imagining that game developers would put so much of their time into making these games, years of their lives into this, so much time and effort, so much money and time and effort into these games, only for them to basically land on something that they're not fully confident in. They're like, they sit down, they play it, they go, oh, this feels weird, right? I am under the impression that when these games come out, generally speaking, that regardless of how awkward or how weird they feel, the developers know that there is a mindset to play it in. And I usually try to aim to position myself to fit in that cockpit, wherever Namco was when they made this weird behind the back tank controlling system thing for this game, and they thought it was okay, and all the little extra features they tagged onto it to sort of make it convenient and really make it work. I am under the impression that there's a way you can play this. There's an angle you can look at it, there's a seat you can sit in, a cockpit with the right controls and the right buttons in front of you, and then the right heads-up display where all this works. There's somebody out there has the mind to make this work, whether it's a playtester or one of the designers or whoever. And I like to search for that kind of thing in all these games, right? Whether it's Gungrave, whether it's Sonic, and especially if it's like a Star Fox Assault, where this game has just so much going on despite how small or how linear these levels are, that there truly couldn't be nuance crammed in anything else other than the gameplay and how the controls work. I don't know, it just blows me away. I was left like struck by the end of the experience. It really got me at the end, even though, again, not a lot of depth in terms of what the story is and narrative, but I was in there, I got it. They sold me on the concept because I think it's so much more scoped in. You're so much more locked into the cockpit with this one, or I guess with the gun in your hand because you're out of the cockpit in this one. Now, if you're curious what the game actually is, I can give you a little rundown for people who might want to play it, I guess. Gameplay is standard Star Fox. You got the R-Wing stages, you got the mechs, like the big tank stages, but you also got grounded stages where you walk around on your own two legs, and I think it controls a lot like the tank. You're actually jumping in and out of all these different things at certain points in the games. You're going from the air to the ground to the tank all at different times, and I think it's really cool. I actually really like it. Each of these things, though, have a really interesting handling curve. The R-Wing is obviously the easiest. I think it has the most flexibility when it comes to moving and getting it to do what you want to do. At the same time, though, it is also probably one of the more limited vehicles in the game or handling styles in the game, just because it only is in the air and you can't stop it from moving, which I think limits a lot of what you can do. It's great for the on-rail segments, which are also in 60 frames per second, whereas the rest of the game is in 30, which is really interesting, I think, just in terms of like how they're optimizing things. But I actually don't mind the 30, because when you hit the ground, things slow down a lot, not just in terms of like what you're doing, but in terms of gameplay too. You're kind of doing this third-person tank controlling thing, but both with the tank and with your your two legs on the ground. And so you're a lot of the secrets, the secret sauce to getting really good at this game and understanding sort of how to play it comes down to knowing what your buttons are doing and understanding like the style, right? Like every other Star Fox game, each level has its own mission objective that can change slightly throughout the course of the level, but it usually stays about the same. You're not doing anything radically different. It usually just changes like the scope of what you're doing, right? It might add more enemies or make a bigger enemy or a bigger target for you to destroy. And generally speaking, that's what you have to do throughout the game. Destroy an object or get rid of a thing. You're not really doing anything other than destroy an object, get rid of a thing. But there are smaller aspects to this that I think can make it maybe difficult for some people to really get into, right? Enemies are really aggressive. There's just tons of them. Just so many freaking enemies in this game. It's really hard to shoot all of them and really focus on all of them. Not to mention the targeting reticle. There's a lock-on, a very general lock-on, but it's not super generous. It's a little loose, and sometimes the aiming itself can be a little bit hard to get a handle on. I find a hard time aiming with the R-Wings just standard blaster. That doesn't really feel that very good. I feel like I miss a lot of stuff when I do it. At least when I try to aim it, but I feel like I just miss so many of my shots, and mashing the button I think gets my finger tied a little bit too. On the ground it's a little bit easier. You just have to hold buttons, and there's a different pattern to gameplay there that I think makes it less exhausting. But at the same time, then you have to sort of contend with the gameplay, right? What you're being confronted with a lot more. And the ground levels take so much longer than the aerial levels because you have to sort of navigate this maze of game design that they don't really inform you too well about. They give you bits and pieces, but you have to sort of understand how these levels are built to sort of get the most out of what's happening here. When you do, though, I think it's pretty good. I think it's really fun. I actually watched a video from some call me Johnny. Some people call him Johnny. I call him Dwayne.
Let's go.
All new to a video, just curious to sort of check up on what my primary opinion would be informed by, having before playing this from my boy Dwayne. And Dwayne says a lot of general things that I think I agree with. He says the movement of the game, it's not great. He says it's a little better than Shadow the Hedgehog the game, which I can see where he's coming from with that one.
In my opinion, the do or die factor in accepting the on-foot missions is the controls. If you think the Landmaster is the only tank-like entity you're controlling, think again, because Fox outside the vehicle still has tank controls, and as you all know, I'm not a huge fan of that in third-person adventures.
But he also says it's not too bad. He said it's bearable. He said it's pretty good. He liked the R-Wing segments a ton. He thinks the ground segments are just okay. They're fine. They get the job done. But he also thinks there's a lack of variety, which I very much agree with, There's sometimes it's unclear to tell what kind of enemies you're dealing with or what's happening where or the type of missions are just kind of straightforward. I don't think any mission type really stood out to me. I think the moments, the beats, the plot points of these missions really stuck out a lot, which is, again, is the focus of these levels, right? The characters interacting, getting them to face each other, these moments. But in general, what the actual gameplay objectives were not super exciting or varied, and I think I agree there. Also, I agree, the jump button.
Because no game, shooter or not, should ever have the jump button mapped to the Y button. That's not right.
Right. I've said so much about this game having a really cool control style that lets you immerse yourself in the feeling of being Star Fox, right? The tactical movement, right? The fact you have to switch these guns, you're getting in there, you're risking your life, all that stuff that I said or whatever, the whole spiel. The gameplay does agree with those things, but the jump button certainly doesn't. The fact it's on the Y button is just ridiculous. It should be like on a shoulder button or something. I know it's weird for there to be a jump button at all in the game like this, but it's a good jump. It really is. I really appreciate it. I love the jump. It's a good jump, but if it was on a better button for a game where you have to consistently hold and mash the shoot button, I would appreciate it. Because jumping is a great dodge in this game, right? You have a side dodge, you have a side roll basically, but the jump I think is a far more efficient, instant get out of here button. It's like Streets of Rage 4 where the jump is slightly invulnerable. Speaking of invulnerability, the game has no invulnerability. It's pretty punishing, the game. You lose health pretty easily. And health pickups are pretty sparingly. You can't really earn any more than what are put in the levels generally, so you have to kind of ration them out when you get to the gameplay side of things. And also there's lives. When you die, the stage resets more or less back to the beginning of the mission. And for some of these ground missions that take minutes at a time, upwards of 20-30 minutes sometimes, if you're taking your sweet time, really trying to make sure that you can ease yourself into things, it can be really tedious to sit down and do a 30-minute level and then get cooked. But at the same time, if you're good at it, you get good at it. If you figure out the nuances, you have a lot more tools than you would think to work past all this, which again is the nuance of that handling system, right? For example, strafing, right? That's a really good way to move left and right, to kind of nudge your character around of having to dodge or, you know, have to deal with the slow turning. You also comes to the dodge roll. Dodge roll isn't invincible, but it's always a good thing to do. Seems to make you harder to hit sometimes, so, you know, sometimes popping a dodge roll isn't too bad. The loop, also back from Star Fox 64. I think the input is you hold the stick, or see the mysterious magical C stick in a direction, and you do the loop. And as you tap it, you'll just turn around. I haven't quite gotten the hang of it yet. I've gotten more intentional about it, but I do it, but I don't really know. I don't know if it'll get the thing I want usually. Sometimes I do. Most times I do, but sometimes I don't. And I go, well. There's also like the level design itself, which I think it's interesting, right? It's not quite what you think it is. It's more linear than it seems. It's a lot like Ghosts and Goblins, if you ever played a game like that, where every level and every item and every event is set in place. For example, there's a level on the dinosaur planet where you have to destroy all these nodes that are placed around the level, basically. And there are tons of enemies, hordes of enemies. There's caves, there's caverns, there's all these different locations to get to. And it can be a little stressful to deal with all these environmental threats and then occasionally get called on by Slippy or Falcon, go, hey, help me, I'm gonna die. Especially with where you're placed at the beginning of the stage, right? If you're just going around doing the level and you get called on by Slippy, you're gonna probably end up somewhere around this temple area, and this temple is a really difficult place to catch Slippy because it's just at a weird angle. It's just a strange place to not really. You don't have a lot of good angles to shoot from the sky to save your boy Slippy, and most likely speaking, your R-wing is a little too far away from you to get into, so you can fly up in the air and actually save Slippy with a little more accuracy. So you're probably gonna be shooting from the ground to do this. And so depending on where you are when that event drops, it can be a little difficult to respond to it, maybe even frustrating, because saving your teammates actually does help you a little bit when you can. The trick to sort of getting around stuff like this is sort of planning out your route, your playthrough, and that takes a little trial and error, obviously, but I think if you have a good sense of how things are going and sort of what you think you'll have a difficult time doing, right, where if you ever figure out where you're dying the most or wherever you're having the hardest time, you know, saving a team member. So in that level of Slippy, for example, I would do the inside cave areas of the level first because there's a ton of items in there and those items are really good. And then I would progress to the top of the mountain, right? Somewhere around the temple area, but I'd be at a higher advantage altitude, right? And so then when the Slippy event occurred, I'd be at a perfect angle, I would have all the tools I need, and I'd be able to help Slippy immediately and ensure that I get that good ranking, then that the score and whatever bonuses Slippy would give me. Because that's another thing about the game. Whenever you help out these teammates, whenever you push a little further, when the game challenges you to go, hey, save this guy, do this thing, collect this thing, right? Whenever the game sort of teases you a little bit with an item or an opportunity to do a little more than just beat the level, the game actually becomes a little bit easier. A really good example of this, I think, is at the end of the game, right? This final level is brutal. It's difficult. It's really hard. One of the hardest levels I've ever played in my dang life, or at least right now in my life. It's hard. It's pretty difficult. I had a hard time with it. It's basically just one big old R-ring segment, but it's so difficult. There's so many obstacles that pop out in front of you, so many enemies, so many moments to trip up and fail. But the thing that made it so much easier to get through, I think, when I realized that what was happening, what was going down, was the teammate interactions, right? When one of your teammates comes in front of you to sort of ask for help, right? If you beat those little Galaga trails before they whiz off screen and you know, get killed off screen because you can't save them at that point, if you save them, they drop really useful items, bombs and health items, for example, right? And I think it really, by the end of that level, right? I had a run of that level where I was doing so well. I had a level 3 laser upgrade, I had 3 bombs, I had nearly full health. I was doing just incredibly good until I hit the first phase of the final boss, which there are 3 phases of the boss. Good luck with that if you ever play the game. Turns out silver is a little tough. You gotta really lock in for that one. But bronze mode would probably be good enough for a first playthrough or a little taste of what's going on there. Regardless, I died for that first phase of that boss. It sucked a little bit. I got a little frustrated. I had to get up and go for a walk. It made me a little annoyed. But then when I learned about all the secrets of these power-ups and stuff, I blasted that first stage. Like, I just tore through that first stage. The second stage was really tedious. It was really tough. There was a moment when I got super close. I was right there and it got me and I got really mad. But luckily, 1-ups that I had collected throughout the stage, that I was able to retry it and basically clear it in one shot, even without that many upgrades. So, because luckily the third phase was basically nothing, right? That second phase, it's all about that second phase if you get to the final boss. It's all about that second phase, about the boss, right? That's the crazy part you gotta get ready for. But even then, in that boss, if you save your friends, time and time again, they'll drop items for you, like health pickups, like bombs, things that can help you speed run this boss or survive so much longer through this just insane, like actual bullet hell sequence, right? It feels like this boss is incredibly unreliable, incredibly unpredictable, but it becomes so much more predictable because the benefits and the things that you gain from, you know, just really locking into the role of Star Fox, being the captain of your team, looking out for your crew, the way, you know, the way they incentivize the role of just, you know, being the player with your NPC party of friends, the way they let you juice that up a little bit makes the game a lot easier, a lot more dynamic, a lot more fun. Personally speaking, like let's say they make another game like this, right? I know they're making a remake, but let's say Star Fox hits the ground one more time. Let's say he puts those little legs to use at some point in the future. I would love to see an expand more more of this gameplay style, because I think you know, the handling aside, I think there's small tweaks that can be made to make them a little more friendly to newcomers that can really sell them on what's happening here, so they don't have the first time handling experience of, this feels bad, this feels weird, I can't do what I want to do, right? I think if you can inform the player better about what kind of experience they're about to have, rather than fix the controls, quote unquote fix the controls, I think in a way that I think would radically change you know, what's so captivating about the experience. For example, I think the map is very good in this game, right? There's an outdoor map that shows you where things are, and an indoor map that shows you where things are better, basically. But the problem is that the map is placed in a weird spot, and it's not always clear where things are and what things are labeled, but you don't always know where power-ups are, where items are, you know where objectives are, and you know maybe where enemies are broadly, but that can be kind of a problem. And also there's a layering issue where there's enemies in the sky, enemies on the ground. There was a moment I was playing the game when I looked at the window, the map, the circle map at the bottom, the little HUD map, and just a ton of enemies just dropping on the map, and I was panicking. I was about to scream and cry and poop my pants and maybe die a little bit inside. Turns out all those enemies were in the sky and I was safe. I was perfectly fine. I could just hop my ship and go up and fight them, right? I thought I was about to get assaulted by like 17 guys, and I was about to scream, but luckily the game is not that mean. It's all about the pattern. You gotta learn the numbers. It's like that Adam Sandler movie, Pixels. You remember Pixels in the movie theater? All right, I remember Pixels. I remember sitting there thinking I was better than everybody watching Pixels because nobody knew who Duck Hunt Dog was, but I knew who Duck Hunt Dog was, you know? I was like, damn, freaking this grandma in the movie theater with her kid watching this funny Adam Sandler comedy family film doesn't know who freaking Hubert is. Okay, dog, let me tell you, what do you know about Hubert, okay? In terms of other improvements I'd make to the game, I think I would just kind of do a lot of mechanical additions, right? Instead of changing the controls, again, because the controls are the centerpiece of everything here. If you want to make the game easier to get into, I think having some sort of comeback mechanic, things like a parry, some kind of recovery system where you can maybe put part of your fuel into your recovery, you know, F-Zero style, stuff like that. Maybe a more reliable invincibility dodge, that kind of stuff. Slow motion mode, time stop, you know, witch time, that kind of thing would help a lot with like close calls. I think stuff like, you know, the crashing into walls or getting way too close to enemies in the air. Things like that could really make it easier and more fun and exciting and like, you know, little fun stylish ways, I think, for new players and even for older players, right? The Star Fox Zero moment of the two planes coming side by side in the slow-mo there, that hits really hard. More moments like that, you know, real platinum game kind of energy, I think, is what it needs. And I think that's what we got in Star Fox Zero, but Zero is doing its own thing anyway.
Come on.
Also, I think maybe some kind of command over the team a little more would be cool, I think. You know, being able to call him like a landmaster or like, you know, some kind of airship, or maybe you get the submarine or whatever. You know, if we bring back the game and these areas are maybe bigger, have maybe more types of vehicles to deal with, right? I would really love to be able to go, all right, bring the landmaster to me, and I just to drop it in, and I'd be able to hop in the landmaster and go along this like big sand road if I want to, or oh no, there's a water segment. Bring in the tank, and I, you know, or bring in the submarine. I can jump in the submarine, I go down there, and I do the submarine. I went with the submarine, or like, oh, instead of the submarine, I'll use the R-wing, I'll fly over it, or what, you know, stuff like that. Or maybe a transforming system where the vehicles could transform into each other, so that way you can get all of them in a nice one compact vehicle, and don't have to worry about my R-wing being halfway, you know, across the stage, and my tank being another way across the stage, and I have to walk between them to do this segment that's tank exclusive, right? It's really good to have my tank outside, but then I gotta walk inside and hop out of my tank, and then they go, all right, Star Fox, go into the sky and fight these guys. I have to walk all the way back over there, my freaking legs, where I could get shanked by like a little tiny buglet, and he cuts my knees, I fall over and I die, and I have to restart the whole dang stage. No way I'm doing that. Also more power-ups. The game has a shield option, which I only figured out in like the last half of the game. There's a lot of indoor on-foot segments at the end of the game there, and I really like the on-foot segments, to be clear. I think I think they are probably my favorite part of the game, more than the armoring sections, because there's just so much happening when you're on foot there. But I think just tightening up those mechanics, making them more reliable, invincible dodge rolls, some kind of recovery system, a melee attack. Kid Icarus Uprising had it right. Melee attacks with this kind of third-person style is the thing, all right? I love the ammo system and that how it makes you want to go around and play with all these different items or weapons. And I was using the sniper to do close range kills at some points just because it was so much easier. It was safer than wasting a big bazooka shot. It really makes you consider what you're doing there. But I really would like some kind of melee option, like whether it could be a sword, a gun, or like just give them the smash moveset, one close up. I know with the kind of perspective we have going to be a little awkward, but hey, make it God Hand. God Hand's got tank controls, okay? Give Fox a God Hand button where you just pull out the forward smash, the big splits kick, and I just slam everybody around me, or some kind of like the big 1, 2, 3 or what, just whatever. I think it'd be fun. Now that we have Smash Bros. Star Fox, I think we should make Star Fox like this freaking, just make him like this Swiss Army knife, a Metal Gear Solid style character where he's got all these weapons and all this gear and all these things. Every time you touch the ground, right? Star Fox is significantly more dangerous out of the ship than he is in the ship. The ship just flies around and shoots missiles, all right? On the ground, bro's got like 17 weapons, tons of power-ups. You can parry, got a knife, got a super move, got a freaking spinal smash, all that locked in. You can call the ship in, that's the kind of experience I think I would want to elevate, to expand from what Assault gives me, right? I think the Star Fox, the guy, the hero who throws his life into danger to save the day at the front of the pack, leads his crew into dangerous waters and succeeds at the end of the day, right? We have that experience in Star Fox Assault, and the scenario I think really helps it. I think what we really need, or I think what I would really like to see from this Star Fox Assault angle of the series, is maybe a close, something not the same, but a similar kind of Andros War, Lylat War scenario where new threat, there's a new war, all right? There's maybe some evil politics are happening. I don't know, John Corneria, president of Corneria, has decided to invade Borneria. We need to stop them, Star Fox. And so you have all the multiple pathways that comes with, and then with Snake. With Star Fox being more of a Swiss Army knife, just having all these gadgets, all these systems, all these mechanics on him, it would be so much more fun. It'd be kind of almost like a kind of pseudo stealth game in a sense, where you can handle all these missions in any way you want, right? And all these ways are, you still are restricted by the tough controls and by, being Star Fox. You have to deal with the turning and the handling and all the funny buttons. The jump button. You got to deal with the jump button. Who wants to deal with a jump button? But hey, you have these tools. Their tools are clearly on his person, right? The tools to do what you need to do are clearly there, and so you'll deal with a restriction or a clunky controls or something that feels kind of slow, or tank controls even, if it means that the game clearly defines its multiple possibilities, its multiple incentives. If it clearly leads you to the water, the oasis that is its many options, and just the game feel of it all, I think it's worth coming back to an idea like this. But yeah, that's Star Fox Assault. I thought it was really cool. I'm really excited for the new Star Fox game, whether I can play it or not. I thought it was neat. I thought it was cool. It gives me a really good impression of Star Fox. I'm really excited. I might play this game more. It kind of falls into the category of game, like I was saying, that might be my favorite. These weird handling experiences where it's all about kind of getting your hands on the steering wheel of these games. Right? I really enjoy these kinds of games because there's so many little nuances, and they're so unique in terms of what the drive is, what the hook is. Whether it's being a big old tank man, or being a fast hedgehog, or apparently being a mercenary fox man. There's so many cool moments. The R-wing thing with Wolf, the sniper segment in the city. I really like that, even though it's really difficult. But I really like the small scale, the peace of the quiet of it. I guess there's not a lot of noise in that mode. There's a lot of enemies, but it's a cityscape that feels desolate. It feels destroyed. It feels interestingly. It feels tactical. I feel like I'm on a mission, I'm really risking my life, and the whole team is hovering above me at all times. Hey, we have to get get the jammers, Fox. I gotta get in there. And I'm running around like a little rat basically. But I felt like I really connected to the team when I was playing this. You know, the Star Fox team, not the crew. You know, so much so that by the end, when Star Fox gives his final thank you at the end of the game, I got myself. I said, "Oh," I gave an audible "aw," because I thought he was gonna say something, you know, a little more serious, you know, a little more flat, you know, a little more normal. Not that Star Fox is a flat guy. You know, he's got some cheeser moments, some fun moments, some hot moments, but in this game in particular, he's got this very like stoic nobleness to him that I really like. I like the tone of him here. You know, about the same as I like him in every other Star Fox game, but just because I can embody the role of him here far better than I could in other games or even in Smash Brothers, I appreciated Star Fox a lot more versus, you know, usually it's Falco who I prefer the air, or I can't let you do that, Star Fox. Usually it's like the other characters are sleeping. Oh, my Star Fox, help me! You know, there's like a lot of other characters there that I think are carrying the energy. You know, they're bouncing off things a lot more radically. Star Fox is not always the big gun when it comes to the conversations, the personality, the tone. Right? He doesn't really carry the series despite being the name of the guy. But in this game, I would say he is a lot of the tone energy. Granted, the crew is top notch here, right? Stewie is bantering. Stewie?
Thanks for stopping by my planet to teach me the ways of the Force, Grogu.
Slippy is I think one of my favorite characters. Like just in general in this game, he's great. I love his voice. His voice is a lot very different than he was in the N64 game. But I like his voice being kind of like normal. He's like, hey man, chill out, dude. He sounds a little older, sounds a little more responsible, a little more annoyed. You know, he kicks back at Falco a couple of times in a way that like little baby Slippy wouldn't have done. You know, little tadpole Slippy wouldn't have kicked back at the boy.
These are all yours. Gotcha. Try not to make a mess of things, Slippy.
Give it a rest, Falco. Seriously. Say your peak for once.
So, and Falco's more of a like a washed dickhead in this game. I really like the energy, right? He's a little lamer here, but I like a little lameness on my cool dickhead characters, you know? Being a little lame, I think adds a little charm to that, you know, makes me respect you a little more, that I can tell that you're not, I can tell you don't have it all down, you know, and I respect that. It feels human, right? Crystal's cool. She's a really great perspective on some things, you know? She has sort of like more, I guess, I don't want to say superstitious aspect to it, which is always fun in a fantasy setting. She says she senses danger. She can understand, like, you know, she sympathizes with, like, you know, things that are beautiful and interesting about the universe or about the nature of what's happening, you know, and I think that's a really interesting angle. Peppy's there. He's old, you know, but I like him. Dude, bro practically throws his life away at the end of the game to try and save the whole thing, right? It's one of those plot points. It gets real heavy. It gets real warming. General Pepper. General Pepper almost gets clocked at the end of this game, right? I thought he straight up was dying. There's a point where he's pleading for his life. He gets assimilated by one of the asteroids, and like he's like locked in his ship like a big tomb. He's like, Star Fox, shoot me, kill me, and it's crazy. It's an insanely dramatic moment, but it kind of hits because you got Star Fox and Star Wolf helping to save Corneria in the moment, and like this is a great, like, awesome team up moment, and then you have this just grim, just one of the darkest moments ever coming out of nowhere. But like, Star Fox, you have to do this, and Wolf is like, well, Star Fox, you got to do it, all right. You gotta keep going, dog. All right, and he gives you some. And at the end of the level, Wolf gives you some really good words to live by. You know, he really gives Star Fox a pep talk, really gets him going. Even though he's still being a dickhead, still being, I can't let you do that, Star Fox. He says, well, but I can let you have motivation. I can let you believe in yourself, and he does that. And it's like, oh damn, even Wolf's on my side. We're really in this, dude. We're really in this. We're doing it. And there's a moment at the end when freaking Wolf comes in when you're doing the whole like raid. On the final boss raid, Wolf is there, and he's there to help. And he's actually like pretty decent. His whole crew's there too. You got the lizard, Leon, the lizard guy, and then Panther. Panther is crazy. I don't even know. I don't remember Panther. I think he might be a new guy, but he's crazy about that Crystal girl. He's crazy. I like him. He seems like some guy, all right? He's truly the some guy of this game, but I enjoy him. He's got some flavor to him that I appreciate. There's a moment in the Corneria mission where he talks about his favorite cafe. And he's like, oh, my favorite cafe got totaled. After this, I went to a succulent dinner. And I'm like, okay, dude. All right, who the hell is this guy?
One of my favorite cafes got totaled. When this is all done, I want a first-class meal.
Like, there's so much personality in all these freaking characters, even at their most dramatic and tragic moments. You know, Oikini. Freaking Andros's son looks like such a dickhead in this game, and he's cool. I like that. There's some kick to that energy coming out the gate. You know, level 1. Here's Andros 1.0, and he's pathetic and looks gross and has a stupid. His body looks stupid and weird, and I like that. And he also dies immediately. And Pigma. I thought Pigma was gonna be a big deal, but Pigma, he tries to be a big deal. He takes off with the MacGuffin, the thing that we think is going to lead to the destruction or the discovery of what this new foe is. Instead, Pigma introduces the new foe. You know, he opens the door for these guys for the Aproids to come right in and just eat him up, eat up the old thread of, you know, eat up the biggest betrayer in Star Fox history, the guy who killed James McLeod. He gets betrayed by the thing that he's holding, gets assimilated by the whole mass, and he becomes this giant, like, pig face in space. It's great. It's so crazy and dramatic, and the music is terrifying. It's scary. It's spooky. You're seeing this big bio-freak thing happen, and it really establishes a terrifying precedent for when General Pepper gets taken over, when Peppy throws away his life. It's a really great heightener. They kill him, too. That guy's super dead, okay? That bastard's done and dead, okay? And I mean, it would be probably nice to see Star Fox reflect on how he feels about that. You know, the guy who betrayed his father has been cooked to pieces, right? Granted, it seems he's not really running with Starwolf anymore. Pigma is definitely on his own. So maybe Star Fox Long had that resolution before. I don't know. I think it's just interesting. These moments are cool and interesting, and they imply so much about these characters and their connections and the world they're in. And I like it. It's good. I really enjoyed Star Fox Assault. I thought it was a really cool game. I'll be playing more of it in my own time, maybe even after I make this video or whatever the deal is. But check it out if you think it's cool. I think it's worth it checking out. But again, be cautious, be wary, be cautious, dear player, of those strange controls, those bizarre controls, because within the bizarre controls, within a queer experience comes a tasty delight. I don't know what to tell you. You gotta really dig. You gotta really put in some time to get into it. But I think for me it was worth it. It stands amongst my favorite games with weird controls I've ever played. Just like Gungrave, just like a Sonic, just like I guess a Metal Slug. You know, kind of. You know, it all comes together with those fun weird controls. I think it's great. I think it's cool. Anyway, Star Fox, I'll see you in the next galaxy. You don't do galaxies. You stay in one galaxy. I'll see you in the next mission, Star Fox. I can let you do that. It's my favorite line in Star Fox. I love the can't. I was thinking about it the whole time because there's a point when Wolf pops. That pop goes so hard, dude. When Wolf pops in and you know, like, oh man, I gotta stop this base, and then I can't let you do that, Star Fox. Like, oh damn, it's for the guy, and they play this crazy song. Man, that goes so hard, dude. That pops so hard, man. And even it popped, and they do it again in this game, dude. They do it again in the song. I popped off, and I'm like, oh my god, he can't let me do it, guy. He's gonna say it. He's like, I can't let you do it, Star Fox. I can't let you do it. But then he said, I can let you do it. I'm like, oh, he let me do it. He let me do it. And that's how you know it's serious. That's how you know the war is real, you know, or whatever. I don't know. It just had a good time. Had a good time.
The new Emperor, Andrew Oikeny, Uncle Andrew!
What? Reinforcements?